Super Mario RPG was the first turn-based JRPG I ever played, and I enjoyed it as a young high school student. It helped cut my teeth on the genre and made me gain an appreciation for it. Now with the remake coming out, does it age like fine wine? Not really, but it's far from aging like a dairy product on a hot radiator. Let's check out what's great about Super Mario RPG and what's kind of not, as I play through the original version on my Super Nintendo Mini. The story is the strongest part of the game, and it has its charm, even if it's not the strongest story ever. Basically, Bowser has captured Peach again, and Mario must go off and rescue her again. It seems like a normal day in the Mushroom Kingdom until a huge sword busts out of the sky and smashes itself into Bowser's Keep, sending Mario flying clear back to his house. Mario sets out again back to Bowser's Keep, only to have the sword announce that it's part of the Smithy gang and they plan on taking over Mario's world. It then destroys the bridge to Bowser's Keep. Now Mario must traverse the world and find a way back into Bowser's Keep to rescue Princess Toadstool. Or so it begins. The game's story, although simple on the plot, does have some charm due to the many characters and locales you go to. Starting off with your first recruit, a young puffball called Mallow, who swears he's a frog. Then he is followed by Geno, a star spirit who wants to collect the 7 star pieces because they belong to Star Road, which Smithy destroyed when he came to this world, and is after them to restore it, because if the Star Road is never restored, no one's wishes will ever come true. And of course, thanks to Smithy, Bowser is now homeless and eventually decides to team up with Mario, and he's easily my favorite character in this when it comes to the game's story. If the Super Mario Bros. Movie based their version of Peach on the Super Mario Adventure comic from Nintendo Power, then their version of Bowser stems somewhat from this game. He's loud, he's a brute, he's a bit stupid, but he's likable, and his relationship of having to be allies with both Toadstool and Mario make him somewhat special to have around. And finally, Toadstool is here too. This is before they made her go 100% blonde in personality. In this game, she's got some brains and plenty of personality to spare. And while I did mention Peach at the beginning, it's technically Toadstool, as they call her in this game. I think this is the last game where she was just outright called Toadstool. Afterwards, they started to transfer her name to Peach in Super Mario 64, which came out a following year. Mainly, I can't help but feel because some of the jokes that they were using just don't translate well with her name being Toadstool. Also, no Luigi, but I'm pretty sure he'll get yours in the next game.
It's me, Mario!
Or maybe not. The villains are also entertaining too, from those who belong in the Smithy gang, like Bower, who likes to freeze people with his arrows, or my personal favorite, Booster, who is the latest person to hold Princess Toadstool hostage. Although unlike Bowser, who wants to rule the Mushroom Kingdom, Booster's just kind of an idiot man-child who wants to marry the princess because he thinks he'll get cake. I am certainly sensing some Goku levels of idiocy here. Again, this game's humorous and lighthearted, and it's just an all-around fun story. If I had to describe this game's gameplay, I would say this game is the perfect beginner's JRPG, and I mean that in both the best way possible and some of the worst way possibles. It does a good job of teaching how a JRPG should be played and what tactics should be used, and it rewards players for doing well learning these things. That said, there's not much challenge though. Beyond the basics and a few good ideas that were fleshed out much better in the Mario and Luigi's series, there's not much for someone who's really advanced in JRPGs to really sink their teeth into. So, where do I start explaining this? Instead of an overworld, you have a map filled with areas, and there are going to be 3 types of areas: the roads in between towns, the towns themselves, and of course the dungeon areas of the game. The enemies in the game appear on screen and you only fight if you run into them, which is much easier than what was customary at the time, which were random encounters. While Mario RPG wouldn't be the first major RPG to have this, that would be Chrono Trigger. Mario RPG does this idea much better with the enemy placements. Mario will, of course, find item boxes filled with coins and other treasures to get around, and each character has their own abilities that make them an asset to the party. Mario is an all-around balanced fighter. Mallow is the black mage, Geno a blue mage, Bowser the tank, and Princess Toadstool is the white mage. The parties are balanced and they have their roles, although my final party always seems to consist of Mario, Toadstool, and Bowser. Bowser's a good tank and can dish out plenty of physical damage, and Toadstool's group hug is ridiculously broken, automatically filling up the party to full HP most of the time and undoing any adverse side effects. And Mario, well, he can't be removed, so I always have him in there too. As far as I call it on a bit of an easy side, each character has their own unique abilities, but they all use MP, or I should say FP, from the same pool, meaning only one of them has to use syrup to refill the FP gauge for everyone. This is not to mention that HP is refilled every time someone levels up, and MP can be refilled easy enough just by using a flower tab in reserve, just in case things get complicated. Also, after every boss battle, whether it be a mini-boss or a main boss, it refills the flower point gauge. As I mentioned before, once you get Princess Toadstool and put a safety badge on her, you are almost invincible with her level of easy healing with the group hug. And if that's not enough, the game can give you surprise attack and defense buff, or just to refill a character to max by defeating an enemy with this random power-up attached. Finally, there is the combat itself, which is turn-based, but they add some unique action buttons. By pressing the A button at the right time when you attack, you can add in some extra animations and double your attack. And each weapon has slightly different timing, so it does keep you on your toes. If an enemy attacks physically, pressing A at the right time reduces the damage you take, and each enemy attacks differently, so it does take practice. Doing a special move, pressing Y at the right time, can increase the damage of the attack. It's a unique, novel system, and to this day, when I'm playing games like Dragon Quest, I still find myself out of habit from playing this often when I was younger by pressing the A button when I'm attacked by a monster, because I got it in my head it will decrease the damage. It's that unique and fun of a battle system. But again, once you master it, it makes the game ridiculously easy and just a bit shallow, because there's nothing there to really compensate for the boost you get with this timed battle system. Unfortunately, the Mario and Luigi series took these gameplay elements and expanded it so much further, made the game a bit more challenging, and made the active time battle systems much more complex. I just wish this original had a hard mode that would make things a bit more complicated and give people who are a little bit more advanced in playing JRPGs like I am now something to sink their teeth into and a bit more complication and strategy to have to be used. It's a nitpick, but it is one I'm going to hold on to as being a bit of a con. Let's move on to the graphics. Graphically, this game's a bit of a mixed bag, and I can understand after playing this on my Super Nintendo Mini why Nintendo decided it was a good idea to remake it instead of just remastering it or re-releasing it on the Switch Online. First, let's talk about the good things. If I compare it to the games at the time it was released, this game really does stand out. Suppose you look at Final Fantasy 3/6 here, which is also available on the Mini. In that case, you see enemies that are non-animated sprites and that the characters' attacks don't ever really animate to show them hitting the enemy. In this game, the enemies are fully animated, the sprites are well detailed, some are extremely large, and they are done using an isometric view, in some Mode 7 effects to give a nice 3D effect on things. The area design, except for a few things like the land end section, pop out and look good and interactive for the time. And they do sell this world as a real lived-in place filled with eccentric characters. Simply put, this is one of the best-looking Super Nintendo games ever made. Kind of. So why do I call this a mixed bag? The graphics are more advanced than the Final Fantasy. It does a great job of doing fake 3D on a 2D system, and stands out as one of the best-looking games of its time and definitely for its system. Well, the faults of this game aren't due to anything the game did wrong. It just has to do with times changing, and some of those things that they did to add that 3D effect don't look bad on a low-res CRT TV. But when they're blown up on a 30-inch 4K ultra-wide display like I'm using to play through this, and well, that's when the problems come in. The game color and its art look a bit blurry, and those sprites have a lot of pixelation on them, taking me out of the environment. It's a shame that this wasn't a problem when I first played this in high school over 25 years ago, but now it looks like pixelated vomit. And a remake will eliminate these imperfections, so I understand why Nintendo is doing the remake. The music is pretty good. We get some excellent original remixes of the Super Mario Bros. Theme, or even the Underground theme, plus new themes like the Midas River theme or even the more lively town themes really take the cake here. So overall, music is memorable. I really do enjoy this one. I do hope a soundtrack comes out of the remake. If they do a good job of that there, I definitely will want one. So, is Super Mario RPG Legends of the Seven Stars still worth playing today? The answer is yes, especially if you're trying to get into JRPGs and see if they're right for you. It's easy, but with a few exceptions, it never feels like it's pulling its punches or looking down. It's just here to train you for the more brutal Final Fantasy games. Again, my main problem isn't that it's being too shallow. My main problem is I want something to be a bit more in-depth for people who do have experience with JRPGs. The game story and graphics are good and pull you into these different worlds and these unique characters. The game is somewhat expensive though. The Switch remake will be cheaper because it costs $80 to $100 for a Super Nintendo cartridge alone on eBay. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the Switch remake and I will be talking about it as soon as I can play it. Anyways, guys, if you've had any memories of Super Mario RPG, leave them down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like.